Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of AI Interconnect podcast, where we dive deep with the builders, operators, innovators shaping the future of prop tech, AI, and digital transformation. I'm Laurent, your host and the founder of AI Interconnect. And today's guest, well, we're going into one of the most fascinating crossover between high performance, real time data, and machine intelligence. And joining me is Cory Yates, CEO of Real Analytics, a company that's transforming how performance is captured, analyzed, and acted on in the world of sports and beyond. Cory, welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
Thanks so much, Lauren. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic, fantastic. I think it's a new experience. Um, there's definitely tech. I don't know about prop tech, but tech and AI and data, and I love it. Let's start with your personal journey. You've got a background that blends business, analytics, and a deep understanding of performance metrics. Can you walk us through how real analytics came to life?
Absolutely. So a little bit about my background. I spent about 20 years in corporate America, primarily as a merchandising executive. So a ton of go-to-market experience from concept to commercialization in terms of bringing new products to market, ranging from consumer electronics to home improvement. In fact, if you're familiar here on the state side with Home Depot, I was the one personally responsible for bringing the paint industry's very first paint and primer in one in terms of exterior paint. It's still in stores today, Behr Marquee exterior paint. I was also
Great.
responsible for bringing the paint industry's very first 50 square foot spray paint. And the reason why that was a innovative product is because it had twice the coverage of any other spray paint in the marketplace, still in stores today. And then on the consumer electronics side, had an opportunity to bring the industry's first child friendly or child FRS radio to market called BuzzBugs many years ago. And so real analytics for me is a passion because it personally hits home. But I'm able to blend my go-to-market experience with my athletic background. So I'm a former collegiate football player, played at the Division II level at Texas A&M in Commerce many years ago, played defensive back there, had an
Fantastic.
opportunity to earn a scholarship after walking on and became a multi-year starter there. So real analytics is a blend of my passion and my background for sport in particular, specifically American football, blending that with my go-to-market experience. This is the perfect marriage. And I love bringing technology to a sport that very much needed it. We found some white space and happy to lean into AI to enable better decision makings as it relates to talent identification.
Wow, impressive. I love it. I love it. This is great. Um, I mean, you're still young. You're not my age anyway. Uh, a football player. Wow, very cool. Okay. Um, where did the original idea spark from, and what problem were you obsessed with solving early on?
Yeah, so I think, really the pivotal moment for me started way back when I was still in high school. I was not heavily recruited by colleges or universities to play at the next level, but I knew that I could. And so it was in 1992. So now I'm dating myself. I was a high school senior and I only had one scholarship offer to play football in college. And it was from a university called Kansas Wesleyan. And I'll speed up the story for brevity's sake, but that that school offered me a scholarship to play. Again, the only university that offered me the scholarship to play. And I was set up to sign my letter of intent, which is, if you're not familiar with it, it is your letter that makes you official that this program is going to pay for your college education and you're going to have the opportunity to pursue your dream of playing your sport at the collegiate level. And so on this particular day, I was excited because my dad and I were going to drive to Dallas Fort Worth Airport and sign my letter of intent. And so on our way there, he's military, so he wanted to make sure we got there 30 minutes early. We get to the gate, and this is before, this is during the days you could meet your party at the gate. We get there 30 minutes early, and we wait for the coach to deboard the plane and meet us and to sign the letter of intent. And he never showed up. He never showed up because they rescinded their scholarship offer. And it was a blow to the gut because that was the first time in my life that someone told me that I wasn't good enough to play for them. And I wasn't good enough, period. And that stuck with me. It was a very emotional day for my dad and I. As you could imagine, as a parent, seeing your child go through something like that, that's pretty traumatic emotionally. It was a tough day. But it turned out to be a blessing in disguise because I said at that moment that, number one, I was going to prove everybody wrong that I was good enough to play college football. And I did that. I walked on, earned a scholarship, and played 4 years there. But number two, I wanted to make sure that no one else went through that traumatic experience, right? The fact that I was under recruited, I wasn't heavily recruited by other universities, pretty much made a decision that I wasn't a good fit for their program. And so fast forward about 30 years later, I have a son and he ends up playing American football, plays through high school, and he also has the opportunity to earn a scholarship and play at the next level. Unlike myself, he overcame my DNA. He's much bigger, stronger, faster, and a better athlete than I ever was. And he had his first scholarship offer from SMU University, which is based in Dallas, Texas. He earned that scholarship offer his sophomore year. And we were super excited. That was actually his dream school because that particular school is about 20 minutes away from his grandmother and his grandfather and about 30 minutes away from his other set of grandparents. And so fast forward to his senior year, and SMU rescinded their offer. They too rescinded their offer. So we relived this almost 30 years later, about 30 years later. And I said to myself, there's got to be a better way. He too was not heavily recruited. He was a 0-star player. But again, and just like myself, it ended up being a blessing in disguise because he ended up playing at the highest level of college football and still playing today. He plays for Colorado University for Coach Deion Sanders, plays defensive back there. This past season, he played 11 out of 13 games. He's on scholarship. He's earning a little bit of NIL money. But had the industry, if it was left to the industry, both he and I would never play college football because we weren't deemed as good enough for a variety of reasons. For me, it was because I was too short to play, in their minds, college football, according to my high school coach. And then in his case, he wasn't on the camp circuit. And so because he wasn't on the camp circuit that's ran by the 247s, the Under Armours, et cetera, rivals camps, he wasn't part of that. And so he wasn't on the radar. He didn't have the exposure. He wasn't known. It wasn't that he didn't have the ability. He just wasn't known. And so what we do, and the problem we're solving, is we're democratizing opportunities for athletes to play at the next level. And AI enables that because we're extracting athleticism data from video so that we can project players who deserve to play at the next level. We can give them that visibility that coaches are looking for because we truly understand the traits that college coaches are looking for, and we're able to quantify what coaches are looking for when they're evaluating prospects on tape.
Wow, that's amazing. That's great, and thank you so much for telling us that story. That's difficult story for yourself, and beautiful story for your kid. And yeah, I mean, you went through a lot of challenges, and and probably you're trying to solve all the challenges with what you're doing. Then, for those unfamiliar with your space, can you give us a quick breakdown of what real analytics does, and more importantly, what makes your approach different?
Absolutely. What we do, we have technology where we're leaning into artificial intelligence to extract player tracking data from video so that we can measure athleticism, functional athleticism. We like to refer to it as in-game athleticism to make it very simple. So we're measuring things like speed, acceleration, change of direction. And then we also have position specific metrics that we utilize to curate an in-game athleticism score. We refer to it as the IGA score. And so what makes this metric unique is that this metric isn't something that my co-founder and I developed in a back room. We spent over 150 hours interviewing college coaches and player personnel executives to truly understand the traits that they're looking for when they're evaluating a prospect on tape. And then, oh, by the way, we spent the last 5 years working side by side with top college football programs here in the US to truly understand and have that deep knowledge about what college coaches are looking for when they're recruiting and they're evaluating players. So all of that knowledge we have baked into the IGA score. Between that paired with my co-founder and I, we have about 60 years of experience in the recruiting space as a former player, as a coach. I did a brief cup of coffee, coached at the collegiate level as well. And then you heard me talk about earlier also as a parent. And so that IGA score is really the secret sauce because it is infused with over 60 years of experience, personal experience in the recruiting space, but more importantly, over 5 years of institutional knowledge where we were able to take what's in college coaches' heads, right, and put that into an algorithm so that we can now be very specific with athletes that we work with to say, look, if you're looking to play at the next level and you want to realize your dream of playing college football, these are the traits that college coaches are looking for. And oh, by the way, we can measure those and tell you how you project to the next level. And then from a player development standpoint, we can show you where you have some deficiencies to be able to improve your game.
That's wonderful. I love it. Then, who are your main users? Teams, leagues, coaches, federation?
Yeah, so our primary customer is our athletes, right? And so, again, we spent 5 years truly understanding and working closely with coaches and universities so that we can democratize opportunities. We want to be able to give the blueprint to athletes so that they can pursue their dream. We know that 80% of high school student athletes, they want to play their sport at the next level. And so that is our primary customer, are the athletes, serving them, giving them trusted, objective data so that they can see exactly what programs, universities, they have a realistic chance of playing at. And then once we dominate and grow our market share and establish ourselves in that space, then that's going to unlock opportunities for colleges and universities to have a greater pool of athletes that they can identify early in the recruiting process. So today we do work with a handful of top college football programs where they are subscribing to our data for them to be able to evaluate players objectively so that they can build a championship roster. And so what they're telling us is we want this data not on the players that we're providing you, so they'll provide us hundreds at a time. They want this information on hundreds of thousands of players so that they can go in and leverage our platform as a talent identification tool that's rooted in objectivity, but more importantly, that's rooted in the traits that they're looking for when evaluating players.
Yeah, I understand perfectly. That makes a lot of sense. It's it's fantastic. It's a great idea. Then could you share? Can you share a practical example of how your tech has helped shift decision making in real time or post game?
Oh, absolutely. So we had so in 2021, we started working with Coach Deion Sanders. He was the head coach at Jackson State University, and he took over a program that they weren't very successful. And for those who are close to sport, you understand that it's all about the players. They're the product, and talent at the end of the day wins. It helps you win ball games. And so once he arrived at Jackson State, there were a number of scholarship offers that were already out there from the previous coaching staff that when he evaluated the players subjectively, right, by evaluating their tape, he didn't think that some of those players were going to be good enough to help them attain a championship at that level. And so he hired recruiting and real analytics. And what we were able to do was we evaluated over 2,000 high school prospects. And we provided them with in-game athleticism score on those 2,000 players, running backs, receivers, defensive backs, linebackers, edge rushers. And we even evaluate the players that were offered scholarships. And what we learned were that about 40% of the scholarships that were offered were players that did not have the athleticism to play at that particular level based on our in-game athleticism score. And so Coach Prom said, look, we're gonna lean into this data in a meaningful way. And then they ended up signing the highest recruiting class in school history, the highest recruiting class in college football subdivision history. And then they went on to play in the national championship at their level and also won a conference title, primarily because and credit to Coach Sanders, he adopted the innovation. He adopted more of an objective way of evaluating players, and it paid dividends. And again, signing the highest rated recruiting class ever, and then also winning a conference championship and playing in the national championship back in 2021 and 22.
Yeah, that makes a perfect example. Fantastic. And congratulations. Great. You are in a fast evolving space between AI, wearable tech, edge computing, tech edge computing, and now player-centric data ownership. Um, what are the biggest trends you're seeing emerge in sport performance tech right now?
Well, we're seeing a lot in the player evaluation space, which I talked about. We're also seeing it in identifying matchup opportunities to help the probability of winning. So you're seeing data and technology being integrated into game strategy, not just in American football, but you're seeing that across other sports, basketball, soccer, etc. And so we'll continue to see that. Where I'd like to see artificial intelligence go is, and we're looking at this is on our roadmap, is how do we leverage AI, specifically computer vision, now that we're tracking players, their functional movement, speed, acceleration, change of direction. How do we then take the next step to give both athletes and sports teams and leagues data that can preempt and prevent injuries, right? And so if you think about one of the biggest variables that can contribute to a win or a loss is how healthy a team is, right? And if your best players are injured and they can't play, or if they can't perform to their God-given ability, then that's going to have a negative impact on your win probability. And so we're looking at ways how we can utilize our data, utilize our technology to continue to improve win probability, specifically around health and performance, and making sure that we can either provide an early warning signal that can prevent injuries, right? Or look for ways that we can help athletes recover and return to play faster.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. No, that's great. And how are athletes themselves responding to being tracked and analyzed so closely?
They love it, right? They
Yeah,
love it. And they love it for a variety of reasons. So if you think about the high school level, I mentioned this data, we are we are democratizing that at the youth, high school and youth level, where previously before it was only available at the National Football League level, only at the professional level. And so uh, they're excited, and we saw that this past fall, where we did a proof of concept. We allowed athletes to submit their videos to us through our website for us to analyze their highlights and verify their speed and athleticism. And we saw huge engagement. We saw a 750% month over month sales increase. We saw our net promoter score is at 40, which suggests that they are also communicating and sharing their highlights, their verified information with their peers. And we saw a number of customers come to us as a result of recommendation. And then last but not least, we saw that these athletes and families are coming back and they're buying from us more than once. About 37% of our customers were repeat customers. And so we know that they're coming back and engaging with us, not just from an exposure standpoint, but also from a development standpoint. So those are the two reasons why athletes are leaning into and have a huge appetite for player tracking data. The other reason is around monetization. So if you think about NIL, if you're not familiar with NIL, name, image, and likeness, this is a huge trend that's taking place at the collegiate level. There are some high school state associations that have allowed high school athletes to earn NIL dollars. Well, from a personal brand perspective, right? If you're a player that runs fast, that is highly athletic, you're going to increase your NIL valuation. Why? Because national brands want to be associated with players that have a high upside, have a high ceiling, right? That's gonna play potentially at the collegiate level or that's going to play at the professional level. And so we're able to unlock those opportunities for athletes who are seeking NIL opportunities by showcasing their talents in an objective way.
Very smart. I love it. Um, then, in fact, I am mistaken when I talk about wearables. It's not wearables. You're analyzing videos only to track speed
Absolutely.
and acceleration and oh, wow.
Absolutely. Yeah. Everything we do is exclusively through video. And so a byproduct of our technology is that we create short form video content where we actually show the player's speed. We show his unprocessed clip, and we have a digital overlay that shows the player highlighted, and then a speedometer that shows the distance and shows the speed in terms of miles per hour here on the state side,
Mhm.
and then their max speed. And so that short form video highlight is what is utilized for athletes to be able to monetize and improve their NIL, because brands want to be part of that. And so they see this highly engaged, uh, 8 to 10 second highlight clip. And as you know, those clips can go viral pretty quickly. They're shareable, it's bite sized, it's engaging. And so that is how we're unlocking NIL opportunities for athletes. And
Like
that's the
like the one.
beauty of player tracking versus wearable devices. Because with wearable
Yes,
devices, you don't have the benefit of actually seeing the play, right? That athlete ran that particular speed.
that's true. That's true. That's well done. Well said. It's what you show on your front page on your website. That's the this 8 second clip.
That's it.
I love it. I
That's
love it.
exactly right.
Okay.
That's exactly right. And the fans love it. The fans love it as well, because they get a chance to see their favorite players and track and see, almost real time how fast that player is. And again, it's shareable. We've had clips that we've posted on social media of players running um, at their max speed when they score a touchdown that have gone viral. I think this past fall we had a post. We posted Arch Manning's max speed. Arch Manning is a quarterback for University of Texas. He's the son of Peyton. Well, not Peyton Manning. He's Peyton Manning's nephew, I believe. But he comes from a lineage of quarterbacks that played at the professional level, at the highest level, even winning Super Bowl. And he ran, I think, close to 20 miles per hour. That thing generated about 3.6 million views in a matter of a couple of days, just
Wow.
because of how engaging the content is, who the player was. And as you can imagine, that also elevates Arch Manning's NIL valuation as well, because he can then show brands that, hey, look, I can actually draw eyeballs, and that's what you want for your brand.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love it. Okay. Let's very very interesting. Let's move on to the challenges and let's talk about the tough stuff. What are some of the hardest challenges you and your users or clients are facing right now? Whether it is in adoption, I don't think so. On trust, accuracy, maybe scaling, maybe.
Yeah, so for us, scalability, right? And so we are relatively early stage. We spent the first 5 years building that trust, understanding, having a deep understanding of what college coaches are looking for. That is all. That's there. Now we're at a point to where we are in a position, now that we have that deep knowledge of what college coaches are looking for. We have that trust, right? Because we've been working with major college football programs, but not just working with them, but actually helping them achieve high level results. Now we want to unlock that, make that available get our technology in the hands of student athletes, so that we can scale the tech and benefit the athletes in the way that I described earlier. And so some of the challenges when it comes to scaling is obviously raising capital. So we just kicked off a round where we're raising capital. But then on the technology side, there are still some challenges with computer vision, right? Occlusion is the biggest challenge. So we have an incredibly smart development team. If I asked them to split an atom, they could probably do so. But one of the challenges that we're still working through is how do we solve for occlusion? And we have some techniques where we're able to do that, but we're still not at 100%. And so of the videos that we get submitted to us, we can accurately process roughly 80% of those videos, but we need to get to 100%, and we're not there yet. And occlusion is the biggest challenge from allowing us to get from 80% process success rate, to be clear, to 100%.
Okay. Whew, unbelievable. Yeah, tech and scaling. That makes sense. Is a I don't think so. Yeah, could be. Is privacy or compliance a growing issue?
It's not. So when you think about the privacy challenge that most face, we don't have that barrier in our space in terms of our solution. Here's why. When athletes are looking to be discovered, they are making their videos publicly available. That is how they get discovered. So they create a roughly a 5-minute highlight reel that contains about 40 plays. They make that publicly available. They're utilizing a video exchange platform called Huddle, and then they're making their Huddle highlight reel available to the public. And so athletes want as much information about themselves as possible. And so there aren't any privacy restrictions around what we're doing because we're helping athletes gain exposure. That's point number one. Now we have to internally make sure that we're keeping our data secure, just like any other AI and any other data as a software company. And so we have measures in place to do that. But as far as athletes or compliance being a concern, no. Athletes want their information out there. Colleges, universities, they want information out there as well. And so for the space that we play in, it makes those barriers almost non-existent.
Okay. It is their data or your data?
It's our data, so we own the data. We collect the data, and then we have ownership rights to that data. Our point of view, though, is that eventually, once we launch our web app, which will take place this fall, we're going to get our technology in the hands of athletes where they will own the data. But today, we own the data. We'll continue to own the data once the web app is available to athletes, but it's going to give athletes an opportunity to share what they want to share with coaches. And if they want to withhold some information, we're going to empower those athletes to share the data points that they would like to be shared. It's not going to be open to the public unless you subscribe. And then again, the athlete will determine what metrics are going to be visible to those others to that's publicly available.
Yeah, that makes sense. That was my next question. Okay, yeah, very neat. Then you're building at the intersection of AI and real world performance, and where are you already integrating AI into your system, and what do you see coming next? AI is there, obviously, but where is it in your system, and what next?
So for us, if you think about how we create value in the space that we play in, we take the video and we're transforming that video into structured performance data. AI sits on the front end of what I just described. Once we collect the video, which is our data source, then we layer in AI to be able to turn that video into structured performance data. So that's where AI lives for us on the front end. When I say front end of what I just described. On the back end, right, we're also leveraging machine learning because every athlete that gets added to our database, our in-game athleticism score gets smarter and the predictive power continues to increase. Why? Because we're not only tracking their athletic movements, but we also track and tag the progression of that athlete as they go from their freshman year in high school all the way until their professional career. We're tracking that so that we can become smarter about the traits that make a successful player at the high school level, at the college level, and at the professional level. And oh, by the way, we also want to understand, right, what traits are causing players not to necessarily have success, right? And so we're constantly learning. That is part of our culture. Is we have a culture of curiosity at Real Analytics where we're constantly learning, and AI, machine learning, is a big part of us helping do that.
Obviously. And any haha use case where AI added unexpected value? Maybe.
We had a little bit of a surprise that the model that the algorithm that we have, just to take you just a very quick overview, high level overview of kind of how it works. We have an algorithm that recognizes field markings on the American football field. So the yard lines, the numbers, the hash marks, the end zone. And then we have an algorithm that tracks or that recognizes the players. And so we're using a technique where we're able to identify certain parts of the athlete. And then between those two, now we're able to be very precise about where that athlete is located on the field. And then, of course, from there, we're able to understand the distance and time that it takes them to perform their functional movements. And then we derive all of these metrics that roll up into the in-game athleticism score, right? At least I was surprised that the foundation of what I just described has broader applications beyond American football, of course. And so our infrastructure and what I just described, we're able to track players in the sport of lacrosse, in the sport of soccer as well. And then there are use cases, adjacent use cases, as it relates to the advertising space, right? And so if you think about, and I've got a background in marketing as well. If you think about how much advertisers and brands spend on sponsorships at sporting events, just imagine, imagine being able to provide insights and intels that helps brands and advertisers truly understand their return on investment when they make those investments in sponsorships, logo placements throughout the stadium or on the jersey. How long are their brands being exposed to the audience? How many eyeballs? And to what extent are those eyeballs exposed to their brand in terms of length of time? And so, we certainly have adjacent applications as it relates to that space, but our short-term roadmap has us clearly focused on the sports space, particularly American football, and then we'll continue to grow from there, starting with field adjacent sports and beyond.
Yeah. That's wonderful. It makes a lot of sense. And
Yeah.
yeah, and if you had unlimited resources, what will you build next?
For I'm fascinated, and there's a ton of white space as it relates to injury prevention. No, there's a lot of solutions out there, but that hasn't been completely solved in terms of giving athletes and teams early warning signals to help athletes stay on the field of play. And whoever can crack that code is going to be it's going to be a winner take all scenario. Again, there are solutions out there. You got wearable devices out there that
Yeah,
monitor load management, right? But even then, it's not prescriptive, right? Um, Meaning that the strength and conditioning programs, the use cases that I'm familiar with, the strength and conditioning programs, they will use the wearable devices to manage the load of the player, but it doesn't have analytics that says, or prescriptive analytics that says Cory Yates should only run 1,200 yards today because at 1,300 yards, his the likelihood that he's going to pull a hamstring goes from 5% to 80%, right? Like that level of analytics and prescriptive analytics just isn't there yet. Um, sure, are folks looking to solve it? Absolutely, but it's not there yet. And if you think about, like I mentioned before, one of the biggest variables that contributes to the win probability again is availability, and no one has a really good solution. And how do I know no one has a really good solution? Because players keep getting injured.
yeah,
I don't,
exactly.
player and the best players keep getting injured, right? And
Yeah,
so you think about, these sports teams, they're spending $27 billion in salaries. I'm talking all sports globally, men's and women's, and players are still getting hurt. Players are still missing, important games, and so yeah, because of that, I can deduce that there's not a good solution that's addressing that, and that's helping these teams keep players on the field, uh,
yeah,
and and on the court longer.
yeah. It's also yeah. It could be also politics because the best player, we want to make them play more. And then if they play more, like you just said, they pull a hamstring because the probability to jump are from 5 to 80%, and so on and so forth. But no, that's very interesting. I mean, if you had to go that way, you will need to do some wearable
No doubt.
uh,
Yeah,
on your side.
yeah. There would have to be, wearable. There would have to be, augmentation. It would have to blend, what we do from a computer vision standpoint with wearable devices to understand, the biometrics as well. It's And listen, the reason why it's not solved is because it's complicated, right? There's so many variables that go into why a player gets injured. There's genetics involved. There, in
Yeah.
addition to just the physical nature of the sport, and um, so it's a massive problem. It's a complex problem. I'm not saying it's easy, but you asked the question: if I had unlimited funds, what would I tackle next? And that would be it.
Wonderful. I got it. I remember that. Okay, let's zoom out a bit for a minute. Where do you see this industry heading in the next 3 to 5 years, long term?
They'll continue to be, you know, leaning into data, leaning into AI as a way to augment existing processes, as a way to help athletes become more efficient when it comes to their training. So let's talk player development. So from a player development standpoint, when I grew up many years ago, you had to train and work hard in order to become a better player, to get bigger, stronger, and faster. You had to grind. You had to put in a lot of work, a lot of hours in the weight room, on the field, on the track. And there is a point, just like anything else, of the law of diminishing returns. And so, from a player development standpoint, artificial intelligence will be utilized to help athletes optimize their training regimen. And when you optimize your training regimen, that's a component to helping athletes stay healthy, right? Where you don't have these overuse injuries. So that's kind of point one. Then when you talk about the game itself, doesn't matter what sport it is, strategy and having tech, deep tech help augment your strategy, that's going to happen. And that's going to happen. That's going to transcend all sports. It's already happening today. It's just, we're just continuing to lean into that even more. And then I think from a fan engagement standpoint, I touched on it earlier, you're going to continue to see data. I mean, the average sports fan today is so much more sophisticated than he or she was 5-10 years ago. Why? Because there's more, there's more data that's available on players, on teams, just on leagues itself. And so as leagues are looking for ways to grow their base and to increase the stickiness and the lifetime value of the customers that follow them, they're going to continue to serve up more deeper insights in terms of player performance, in terms of team performance. I wouldn't be surprised if you start getting some insights about strategy, pre-game, in-game, right? And I think, with this whole, of course, the betting space, I can see where props are going to be a lot more sophisticated. So think about how fast a player is going to run. What's the over and under on, Cory Yates running 20 miles an hour in this game against the Dallas Cowboys, as an example, right? So those are just some examples of where I see this going in the near future.
Love it. And what's one shift, whether technical, cultural, or operational, you think we're not talking about enough?
That's a very good question. I point back to health and human performance around keeping players healthy. I think it's a massive problem, like we talked about before. I see a lot of new innovations around helping players become better athletes, helping teams, build championship rosters, helping them have a strategy to improve their win probability. And I think anchoring around win probability is the right anchor. I think one component that there's still a tremendous amount of white space is just the whole piece around making sure what can we do to keep the athlete on the field of play or on the court of play. And so there'll be a shift around that, because win probability that's core. And if you can demonstrate that whatever solution you're working on, whatever vertical that you're in, that you can have a direct impact on that win probability and move the needle there, that is where we're going to see a lot of innovations anchored around that win probability, and how do they move that needle from left to right.
Great answer. Fantastic. I love it. It's Cory, it has been a powerful conversation. I really enjoyed it. I really appreciate your openness, your vision, and the work you're doing at Real Analytics. And thanks again for being on the show.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Glad to be here.
it's my pleasure, and hopefully we invite you again maybe a year from now and see the evolution of uh, healthy athletes and more technology around AI. It would be
Love
very
it.
fun to watch.
Love it. Thanks a lot for
Would
having
love.
me once again.
Thank you very much. And that's it for today's episode of the AI Interconnect. If you enjoy it, share it with someone who is building the future, or better yet, someone who should be. And until next time, stay curious, stay creative, and keep building. Remember, the best way to predict the future is to create it. And thank you so much, Cory. Have a good day.